Cuba, it's me. Welcome to episode 240 of the Willow Show, which stands for Wrestling is Life. Life is Wrestling. Now, this episode is entitled Chew 'em Up and Spit 'em Out. See, in wrestling, a lot of guys, I know for a fact when I went through wrestling school, there was 200 people that came through there, paid a whole bunch of money, and left not very long after. Some would stay a couple days, some a couple weeks, some a couple months. But man, they got a whole bunch of money from people who never ended up making it. And that's fine. If you're not going to end up being a wrestler, then that's the perfect place to find out, right? But there's been a lot of wrestlers over the years who haven't got their just due, in my opinion. Whether I be talking on like the highest level or even on the local independent scene. Um, see, some people might be happy about this because it's kind of a competition, not just in the ring, but as far as if someone else that may be a threat to you leaves, then you might make more money, you might get more bookings, you might get more championships. So I do understand it is a cutthroat business, but I'm the kind of guy that feels sorry for some of these people that it didn't work out for them. And I want to hear from you guys too. So I want you to pick someone on your local independent scene who you didn't feel got their just due. Like, I want to start, like Nori on the Drinks Temp says, let's give our legends, maybe not so much legends, but that's what he says, but let's give them their flowers while they can smell them. Because a lot of guys dropped out of the wrestling business because of injuries, family, their passion had dropped out, but some of them just dropped out because they weren't getting what they deserved, and they know how much they put in, and they just weren't getting the credit where credit is due. So let's pick someone, one from your local independent scene and one from like the major leagues, who you felt maybe not wrong, but they could have got a couple more chances. They could have had some better creative written for them, or like in the case of the local independent guys, the guys that should have made it a little bit farther and got more chances at tryouts. I should have really thought about this before I did this, but let's just think. One I can think of who I always talk about on the show was Quinton Valentino. Now, I know he had at least one, maybe two dark matches with the WWE, but he had such a great look, such a great voice. Um, he was very charismatic. I really felt like they should have signed him. Just gave him a chance. See where it would have gone with him. Give him a couple, maybe give him a character, give him a couple weeks on TV, see if he could have got over. I think he could. Another guy that I always felt should have been like in Ring of Honor and those kind of circles was Mike Stevens. Man, I wrestled this guy like almost 10 times, probably 10 times. And he had it, and he dedicated his life. He had the look, he had the smart, he had the passion. He really cared, and he was such a pleasure to be in the ring with, but he had everything it took to be one of those guys, and just when he was on the cusp of it, that's when it ended for him. But man, I don't know if it's too late for him to make a comeback, but I see once in a while he'll hang around one of the wrestling schools, but he could have done it. He had it all. Another guy that I haven't talked about before is there's a guy, Prodigy Reese. I don't know if I think it's Reese Reynolds. He came up with some of those Hamilton guys like the Gym Rats and those guys, and Ethan Page and Josh Alexander. And he had the natural athletic ability. Like, all those guys were good. But I was even talking to hacker Scotty O'Shea at the One Show, and he told me he was the best out of all of us. He had a couple injuries that set him back, but man, he was just so naturally gifted. His timing was incredible. He really, especially nowadays, the guys like Reese and Mike Stevens, Quinton was big, but like nowadays the small, and there's like the cruiserweight divisions and NXT and so many independent. These guys were ahead of their time, and I even feel like I was a little bit like, I know I'm not looked upon with any really great respect, but back in the day I was doing a couple things that people weren't doing back then, and I just feel like a lot of these guys that were doing stuff back then, if they were to do it now, they'd be so over. It's just it's just the way the generations work and the way the up and down of the wrestling business works. So those are three guys I can think of. There's plenty more, I'm sure. Like I said, I really should have thought it out. Um, Flex Falcone had a really good look. He was not bad in the ring too, and man, he could have been something. But as far as like the main guys, wow, that's a tough one. That's what happens when you don't do your research before. You just think of a topic and then you get up here and blab. But there were some really great guys in WWE and WCW over the years that really didn't get what they deserved. I felt Canyon for one. Man, I loved watching him in WCW. Every week he had a new move, and he was so innovative. He was pretty big. I mean, he was kind of skinny, but he was really tall, and I felt they should have done something bigger with him in WCW. He had some really great matches, but then they bring him over to WWE. The tag team with him and Dallas Page didn't work, and then they gave him the Boy George thing, but man, he had such passion for the business, and I really loved reading his book, but I felt they really could have done something with him. There was a lot of guys in WCW that if they had been brought under the WWE machine, I felt they could have been so much more because WWE generally knows how to get the best out of their talent. I really like those 3-minute warning guys. I know the one guy ended up tagging with Hurricane Helms, but that 3-minute warning thing was so over, and I really just felt like they could have really, any of the Samoans are money. They should know that. I think they should have invested a little bit more money in them because I figure it would have paid off. What's some other guys that really didn't get what they deserved? Um, Man, that's a really tough one. Really, there's so many great talents out there, and a lot of them did get stuff, but I'm just saying the ones that should have got more. I gotta think of one more to close the show. Come on. What's Elian doing here? I know. I'm so excited thinking about the Canucks game that I can't even concentrate on the wrestling. I mean, let's take it back even farther, like back in the 80s. Some of those territory guys in the 70s were so good. I really felt Raven. I felt his character was so good. I mean, he was great in WCW, and they had him in WWE for doing some of that hardcore stuff here and there. But I felt like the way he is on the mic and understanding his character, he could have got that over. Excuse me, way more than they actually let him do. They never would gave him the ball and run with it, kind of thing. I was always a fan of Adam Bomb, and I always loved Chronic as a tag team. And then they came in and they fought Undertaker, and the match sucked so bad. But they could have gave him another chance. But I guess from some of the reports I read, they weren't at a great place in their lives, or maybe one of them. I don't know. Brian Adams and Brian Clark, I believe. Ernest the Cat Miller was so over, and then he had a cup of tea in the WWE, but it really didn't click the way it was. But I just felt he could have been something major. But that's all I'm going to do for now. I'll probably think of a whole bunch more after I'm done. That's what always happens. After I do the episode, I'm like, oh, I should have said this, and I should have said that, I should have said this. I'm like the new Eminem song. I'm sitting in the car and picking it apart, and I thought it was good, and I always do that. Same with my matches, or even everyday life. I'm like, oh, I had the best comeback. Why didn't I say it? I always think of things after the fact. But my favorite thing is hearing from you guys. So, as always, on The Willow Show, like, or you get a leg drop. Comment, or you get a clothesline. Subscribe, or you get a suplex. Who is someone on your local independent scene that you feel doesn't get enough credit and that should get more of a chance to be something more than they are? And who is someone on the major level that really didn't get what they deserve as well? I'm your host, Elian Habanero. I love wrestling. Cuba!